Hello again, folks, and thank you for joining me in this week's Take 5 on Friday. I've been very interested to see in the news just recently that Perseverance has landed on Mars. You've probably seen some of those pictures also. Perseverance, of course, is the little vehicle that NASA has sent to Mars in the hope that it will bring back some pieces of whatever there is on Mars so that the scientists can study and see if there was life there at any time. I'm old enough to remember those pictures coming back from the moon in July 1969 when Neil Armstrong made the first moonwalk. Do you think is it fair to say that this Mars landing has made less fuss than that first moonwalk? If that's the case, it might simply be because we've too much to contend with right here on Earth to have time to try to come to terms with what the space race is all about. Certainly what this Mars landing has done for me is to remind me of how little I know of what is going on all around me. I've told you before about my love of TV quizzes, especially The Chase, and I'm certainly not alone here. But part of the reason why I don't apply to be a contestant is I'm afraid I'd be one of those people who sometimes embarrass themselves. You know, those people are asked a question and say, well, actually that's not my specialist subject. And you're inclined to say, well, what exactly is your specialist subject? You haven't got too many questions right so far. Guess that probably would be me. I can imagine Bradley Walsh asking me to name the planets. If he did that, I think I'd struggle. But then, of course, I could ask Bradley, well, how many do you want me to mention? Because you see, the little that I do know tells me that the scientists and the astronomers and the rest of the brainy people sometimes aren't quite sure. They tell us that it's possible that in the future there may be other planets. It is a fact that these things keep changing. It's always possible that new planets could be discovered, and certainly there was one that used to be a planet but isn't a planet any longer. That's Pluto. Apparently now Pluto is only a dwarf planet. So it's probably high time for me to do some research of my own. I certainly remember as a youngster trying to be smart about my address. Other wee friends of mine would do the same thing. You know, you'd write a person's address. Your wee friend went to school and you sent him a Christmas card or something, and you'd put down his name, you'd put down the street, you'd put down the town, you'd put down the county. It could be County Antrim, County Down, whatever it is. Then of course you'd say Northern Ireland, the United Kingdom, Europe, the world, and the universe would be the last thing you would put down. And of course, as I say, you thought you were smart. You see, there was something you overlooked if you did that. You overlooked the Milky Way. The Milky Way, of course, is the galaxy that contains our solar system. So that whenever you put down the world or Earth and then the universe, you should have put in the Milky Way before the universe. Look, it's just vast, and as far as I'm concerned, it's mind-blowing. But if Bradley was to ask me that question, I think I'd settle for 8 planets. I'd have to leave out Pluto. You see, when I've learned a little bit about the planets, and of course there's a lot of work for me to do there, I think then after that it might be time for me to start thinking about the stars. I do know that when I look up into the night sky I can find the Plough. Some call the Plough the Big Dipper, and I do know that there are 7 stars in the Plough, or the Big Dipper. And if you look to the east side of the Plough, there are 2 outside stars that are pointing upwards in the night sky, and then straight in line with those 2 stars you find a very important star in the night sky. Of course it's called Polaris, or the North Star, and on a clear night I can see that from my front door, which points almost due north. But look, if I try to go on here I'm going to tie myself up in knots, so let's go back to the planets. And I've said to Bradley, I'm not sure if there are 8 planets or 9. I do know that Pluto has been downgraded, so maybe we're going to have to settle for 8 planets. And you probably know this anyway. Here's a little sentence. My very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas. My very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas. What on earth am I on about? Well, you could have said that before August 2006, because that's when Pluto was downgraded to a dwarf star. And so my very educated mother, MVEM, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. Do you get it? My very educated mother, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, just served us Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, 9 pizzas, Neptune and Pluto. Now, you don't have Pluto. So what are we going to do now? And the suggestion is that you've got to drop off the 9 pizzas and just simply add in nachos. My very educated mother just served us nachos. And if you've got that, well, you've got some useless information. Or maybe not so useless information now that Perseverance has landed on Mars and we're beginning to think of things that are going on around us. Of course, I should have mentioned the sun. That's the very starting point of it all. You've got the sun, and then next to the sun, as I say, we start off, we've got Mercury, Venus, then there's us on the Earth. And by the way, I'll have to let you work out yourself where the moon comes into the whole thing. But just to finish, that idea of giving me a silly sentence like that, we call that actually a mnemonic. And mnemonic itself is a funny word. It is, as I say it, mnemonic, but there's an M on the front of it. You spell it M-N-E-M-O-N-I-C. And you can make up any amount of mnemonics that you want to, particularly if you're a student and you're working for whatever exams it is that you're doing, A-levels or university work or whatever. And you folks at Braniel, well, you know my favourite mnemonic, M-N-E-M-O-N-I-C. I use my favourite mnemonic to describe what God has done for us by sending his Son to die for the sins of the world. If you're not from Braniel and you're listening to this little devotional that I'm giving you now, the Bible simply says that by grace you have been saved. That's the word, grace. G-R-A-C-E, and my favourite little mnemonic that comes from the word grace is this. We've got God's grace, but by having God's grace we have God's riches at Christ's expense. G-R-A-C-E, God's riches at Christ's expense. God bless you all, and we'll talk again soon.